Exclamation, everybody, and welcome back to Cube Ramblings. For me, it is a Saturday night, February the 27th, 2016. This will be going up as per usual on Sunday morning. Hope everyone has had an excellent week. I have been quite busy trying to play all the things that I could play. It's been interesting. I feel like I am further behind than I've ever been as far as things go. But then again, there's still a lot that I've been looking at and a lot of things to discuss here. It's going to be it's a very slow news week as far as any real interesting news. So this is going to be a little bit more of I don't know if you'd call it a freeform, uh, a freeform episode. I am going to stick to games. I'm going to talk about some games here and there, some things that I'm looking forward to in the next month. This next month is going to be really packed full of stuff, man. There's a lot of games coming out, a lot of games I've been waiting for, and some that I haven't even heard of until just the other day. It's I'm going to try to cover as much of that as I can. So if I hopefully I can keep it all together and make it interesting, because my critiques on games that I have not played yet, or even for that matter games I have played yet, tend to be lacking in the in the substance as far as the English goes. Yeah, that game is kind of good and nice and things. so bear with me as I attempt to do some justice to this. Speaking of some games that I've played, I'm just going to make one more mention of Atlas Reactor. I have already talked about it, I think, last week, and I played it on live stream. I played the side quest video of it came out this week. I wanted to point out one thing that I found actually yesterday when I was looking through, or last night after the live stream when I was looking through the various news sites and whatnot. Apparently, Polygon back in October of 2015 did a long form article on Atlas Reactor where they talked to the devs and what they were planning on doing. And it had this game had completely fallen under my radar. That article had completely gone under my radar as far as I know. And it's a rarity for Polygon to do a long form article on games, believe it or not. So I'm going to link you to that. If you want to learn more information about Atlas Reactor, I'm not going to explain the game anymore because I've already kind of covered that base, I think, at this point. But if you're intrigued as to what they were trying to get at as far as the game is concerned, that might be a good resource to look at. I briefly skimmed it. It has a lot of information in there. I haven't quite grokked all of it yet, but it's certainly worth the read, I would say. Based on the fact that there's very little of anything on Polygon that's worth the read anymore, it's certainly worth the read on that one. In addition to that, this week, I took a look at the Solus Project. It's a first-person survival walking simulator adventure majigger. And sci-fi, which of course means I'm all over it. It was an interesting playthrough. I think coming off of Firewatch, for me, I'm certainly in the walking simulator mood. I certainly like the idea behind it. I think I've always been kind of on the fence when it comes to survival mechanics, like, hey, you're freezing now, or hey, you're wet, or you gotta make sure you have a heat source nearby, and make sure you're drinking and eating enough calories and that stuff. I know that there are people that really dig that stuff, and to a certain extent, I can kind of dig it, but the micromanagement that comes into play with that tends to get on my nerves after a while. I think this game thus far seems to be doing it okay. Like you're not constantly hungry, you're not constantly thirsty. They're pretty generous with some of the infinite water sources that you can tap into. So from that perspective, I was so far so good with it. I am intrigued by the story. I want to continue playing it. I also want to wait until it's closer to being done as well, because I want to make sure I get the full story out of it. And I also made mention of it of a cave when I was in the cave in my playthrough through it, that there are areas that you can get stuck in, and I did get stuck in that cave off camera at one point and could not get out. I assume that's something that they're going to have to address at some point. I assume that's just because it's a alpha or early access or whatever you want to call it. That some of that is possible, but it's certainly made for me kind of being a little bit more leery about the game. Also, there's parts of it that I really do enjoy, like the fact that there's sort of a dynamic weather. I mean, they go a little overboard with the weather. It's kind of like Minecraft in many ways, where it's going to rain now, and it's going to keep raining now, and it's going to keep raining and keep raining and keep raining. It's like, I get it. It's rainy. Let's move on to something else. So to that extent, I think they'll have to tweak the weather a little bit in the game. But I do like that there's high tide and low tide. So I was actually in the cave at one point. I could see the tide coming in because the water was coming up, was increasing the height. And there was an area on the beach that I couldn't get to that I could get to in a previous run through when I was running, off camera, because the tide had come up. And I mean, technically I could get through it, but I would have been wet. And then, nighttime was coming, and freezing is hypothermia is a big deal in that game. So it's I like what they've done so far. I don't know where the heck all those eight other secrets I didn't find were hidden at, but it's kind of bugging me a little bit. But I'll have another opportunity later on to take another look at that and see if I can see all the things in there. So that's the Solus Project. I'll link you to Rock Paper Shotgun. They have an article where they give their impressions on it. So far so good. I think they've got something there. They've got something compelling. It reminds me a little bit of the videos I've seen of The Forest, except though they really have to do something in the Solus Project. They really have to do something with the way they do their crafting, because right now there's no crafting interface per se. In order to craft things, you have to actually drop it on the ground and then combine it, and it's kind of it's kind of a janky way of doing it. I feel like they need something in there, and I'm hoping that that's just a temporary construct until they find something like a crafting bench or something like that, or a crafting interface of some kind that's a little less clunky than, let's drop this on the ground and then let's combine this with this one because I dropped it on the ground, and so on and so forth. So my thoughts thus far on that. Also today, so the new the Master of Orion reboot is now out on early access on Steam, and just today I bought it last night and I installed it this morning, and was playing through it a little bit for a couple hours. It's I'm intrigued. I'm interested. It certainly caught my attention. Certainly captured my attention. I have never played a Master of Orion game at all, and as I've mentioned before, it's been recommended to me that I do it, and so far so good. I actually enjoy what I'm seeing, and if you actually order the early access on Steam right now anyway. I don't know if this is going to continue on through the early access period or not, but The package deal that I got on it was you buy that for $50, and you also got Master of Orion 1, 2, and 3 as part of the bundle. So if you want to go back and revisit some of the classics there, I hear Master of Orion 2 was the best of the best of breed. Then you also get that as part of the package deal. So I've been playing through it a little bit. I am leery about doing a video right now because when I launched the game, it popped up with the terms of use and all that privacy stuff, and in there it said as part of the beta, which I assume their early access is they're considering that beta. You're not supposed to share any details. So I don't know if anybody's doing Let's Plays yet of it. I mean, I don't want to do a Let's Play of it yet, but I was kind of thinking of doing a video of it. But I don't know that anybody's doing videos of it yet, and I'm kind of leery because I read that. I'm like, there are times when I feel like the village idiot, and I speak like the village idiot. There are times when I feel like the village idiot when it comes to YouTube sometimes and content creation, because I'm that guy that's looking on their websites and going, okay, is there any special considerations I have to make before I do a video? Like sometimes they'll say, please link to our Steam game page, or please link here, or they might say, sometimes companies or developers will put stipulations in there like don't use our game as background footage when you're saying something controversial, or keep it clean, or don't curse and all this stuff. So a lot of times devs will kind of shove that into the terms and conditions on stuff. And I'm that guy that goes and looks at that stuff and like, oh, okay, well, I guess I gotta make a mental note of this, or I gotta make a mental note of that, or I've gotta make sure I don't do this, or if I'm gonna do a channel update, make sure I don't use footage from that game on the channel update, just in case I say something that is not kosher with that, or various things of that nature. And like, I know, for instance, I'll give you an example. Minecraft, Mojang, one of the terms and conditions in that is that you can put your video up, you can monetize it, but it cannot be behind any paywall, and it cannot be behind any paywall, including but not limited to a limited time paywall. So what I take away from that is, when you have a service like, say, GameWisp, where people can subscribe to a channel and get content early from that channel, like 3 days early or something like that. Technically speaking, if you're doing Minecraft that way, you're breaking the terms and conditions that Mojang has set out. And it's stuff like that I pick up on, and I see it, and I try my best to adhere to it. But I see so many other people out there that just freaking ignore that whole thing and just like, screw it, I'll just do it anyway. There are entire channels that just don't even bother with embargoes and stuff. They just throw videos out there. Who cares? Whatever. So I tend to take a more, I guess, cautious approach to it. And when I read that in terms and conditions, it may very well be that means something else entirely. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I try my best to read these things. They're not usually in language that makes any sense. I guess I should be thanking my stars that it's actually in English and not Latin. But seeing that, I'm like, well, maybe I should hold off. And honestly, I don't know how much more. It's early access, so I'm not sure how much more of the game they have to sort of put in there. Some of the voiceovers right now, like some of Michael Dorn's voiceovers, he's doing the narration of the game. Some of them are lower quality audio than others, so I think they're probably still working on some of that stuff. I would hope they are, because the very beginning of the game, when he's talking, it's like, wow, it sounds like you're talking through a radio. We're on AM radio here, as opposed to some of the other things, though. Some of the other cutscenes later on, a lot crisper. So I think they're just kind of in the process of fleshing all that out. So on the one hand, I kind of want to wait anyway because you want to get a good foot forward on that. On the other hand, too, I'm leery about after reading that thing and they're like, maybe I need to wait until this is out of early access before I do a video on it. I don't know yet. What I tend to do is I use that as a guideline to then look at their like Twitter feeds or something, and if they're retweeting others who are doing live streams of the game or something like that, then I'm usually like, all right, then they must be cool with it at that point. So I don't know if that's going to be a side quest video this week or not. I might wait on that for a bit. Like I said, what I'm seeing in there is really nice. It's the artwork is very good. The voice acting and stuff still needs to be cleaned up. The acting itself is good, but the audio needs to be cleaned up, I think, in there, from what I could tell so far. And I didn't get very far in the game. Not all the races are in the game yet. Some of them are still locked away because I guess they're being worked on. Particularly the race that I wanted to play, which is one of the newer races that they've introduced, or one of the new factions, I should say, not races. It's human, but it's a different human faction. I wanted to play them, but they're not in there yet. They're sort of like a mercenary kind of faction, and I forget the name of them. So I was playing a Bilrathi because it sounds like Kilrathi, which is Wing Commander, which is my favorite game ever. So I figured, well, let me play Bilrathi. And I did a bunch of turns. I killed a pirate base and whatnot, and I had three colonies going. It's having never played Master of Orion, but having played Star Trek: Birth of the Federation, to me, Star Trek: The Birth of the Federation and this were almost identical, except Master of Orion is 3D and more of a graphical thing than, it's more up to date, up to speed than say Birth of the Federation was. But I'm assuming Birth of the Federation took a lot of its cues from the original Master of Orion, because there's so many like similarities there with how you do the research and stuff, and how you have the different buildings that you can build on the planets. Although the Master of Orion, you only build like one of each building, it looks like. Whereas in Birth of the Federation, you could build multiples to speed up research and all that. And there's a whole there's a tech tree as well in Master of Orion that you kind of unlocks things as you go. I guess the interesting yet weird thing that struck me of the game, like I've played a few 4X games before, but I never, like, usually when they do the research stuff, it's you could research multiple things at once. Your Empire doesn't have to just research one thing at once. You can research a couple different things and kind of divvy up your researchers amongst things. This one is really just, you have just a pool of researchers that are spread out across multiple colonies, and you just research one area at a time, and the more researchers you have spread out amongst the colonies, the faster that goes. So I guess from that perspective is actually kind of nice. They do have, in the combat system, they have a simulate button, so you can just, if you don't really want to deal with the combat, you can just hit simulate and it'll go resolve it itself. Or you can go into a tactical mode, which is still kind of a resolve this myself kind of mode, but you do have real-time control of your ships, so you could actually put them in formations, kind of, and I think manually. I don't think there was any button to put a formation in there, but you could manually sort of form them up. You can have them duck behind cover, like asteroids and whatnot, to try to get out of line of sight for a little bit, and stop the AI from shooting you. So from that perspective, it was kind of interesting. I did that once. It was a battle that I was going to win anyway. It was against a couple pirates that weren't very high level. but it looked intriguing. I'm not entirely sold on that yet, but it's especially since the rest of the game is turn-based and then suddenly you're doing a real-time thing. But I can see where that could be compelling as well. So I'm willing to keep an open mind on that particular one. So yeah, so far so good with that. I mean, I didn't get that far into it. Like I said, I played about an hour into it, so maybe, I don't know, 60 turns, maybe, if that. But it's so far so good. So far so good on that. You have the way the planets are laid out. The way the systems are laid out is you can have several different planets in a system, or none at all. You can have just an asteroid belt, which I found where the pirates were. You then colonize those planets. They all have attributes about them that determine what kind of resources you get, how many, how abundant the resources are, whether or not you got to terraform the planet in order to do farming, and so on. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty straightforward as far as I could tell. So I was very pleased about it, and I'll keep digging into that here and there to try to figure it out before I actually do any kind of videos on it. That would be nice. What else do we have on here? So I played some more Borderlands at on the live stream, up to level 31 now. Very good. I pat myself on the back for that one. It's a lot. I did not intend to be 3 hours on the live stream for 3 hours, but I was, and I was enjoying myself too. It was a lot of fun. I like being able to jump into a game and do a bunch of quests to get them done and all that stuff. But man, I knew that the game was pretty long. I did not realize how long. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do, especially for someone like me who has to do all the side quests. Like, I can't leave no side quest left behind for me. For me, I'm just like, oh, I need to do this now. I got to do that now. I got to do this now. And I'm trying to do the DLC that I have before I actually hit the end boss, in the hopes that would, buff me up for the end boss even more. Plus, I've got all these points in my tech tree that I still haven't done yet, or my skill tree, I should say, that I haven't maxed out yet. I'm like, oh, I would really like to put some more points in here, but you only get 1 point every time you level up. So I'm like, oh, I gotta level up some more. I gotta grind some more things to get to where I want to be. But that's a lot of fun. I enjoy that. I'll hopefully someday this year I'll finish Borderlands, the first Borderlands, and then I would like to get to do the other Borderlands games in the series too. But I might take a break in between that one and the next one. Who knows? I mean, I kind of take breaks anyway because there's other things that I like to jump into while I'm, I like to keep variety in everything is the way I'm trying to roll with it. I also just finished tonight, recording the final episode of Homeworld Deserts of Karak. And the story has all fallen into place. It very much does support Homeworld 1. I'm going to try my best not to spoil anything for you. But suffice to say, if you really enjoy the Homeworld series, in particular if you really enjoy the Homeworld storyline. Now, keep in mind, Homeworld is a real-time strategy game. It is sci-fi. Homeworld 1 and 2 and its expansions are set in space, so it's a full 3D grid. Homeworld Deserts of Karak is actually just a 2D game. It has some height elevation, but it's not really that. It's not as important as the game tells you it is. And it's story-wise very competent, I would say. I enjoyed the story tremendously. I didn't necessarily enjoy the gameplay. What I did like was that, a lot of times in these games I will put them on easy because I want to just I just want to. I'm not very good, A, but B, I just want to get the story usually. And so, but in this case, I was on normal and I was able to get through the story really without any problems. I mean, honestly, the worst problem I had was on like the third to last mission or whatever it was, where I died twice, and that's the only time I died, I think, in the entire playthrough of the game. So the AI is not very good in the game. If you're, I imagine the multiplayer scene is probably pretty good, but you know, I don't usually play real-time strategy games in multiplayer. It's just not my bag of chips usually. So I don't know. I don't know. I talk in length about what I like, dislike, and all that stuff, and I give some story spoilers for Homeworld games at the end, during the end credits of Homeworld Deserts of Karak. So you'll be seeing that go up hopefully on Tuesday, as per the usual, and then that opens up that section of the schedule again for whatever is next. And it's probably going to be another real-time strategy game. And I'm juggling right now. What I'd like to do is I would like to play through Star Trek Birth of the Federation. At least do one faction in Star Trek Birth of the Federation, which will be about probably like 150 turns, and then be done. So I don't know how long that will take. There'll probably be, maybe a dozen episodes or so, if not more. And then I'm just going to end it there. I'm not going to do like every faction. I'm not going to try to be a completionist when it comes to that. I'm just going to do like one faction. Mostly because I want to, I have a hankering to play it. It's been a while and I'd like to get back to it. But also, it's a little bit, I'd like to be able to present not only new games, but also old games on the channel. And I've been shying away from a lot of the older games because I know that people don't tend to like to watch them that much. Or, they would rather see them without commentary. They'd rather be a preservation kind of thing. So I try to, every once in a while I like to inject one in there, but I'm trying not to make it the big deal focus either. I just kind of want to be, I want to be able to play, my goal eventually is to play every game that I ever wanted to play, or hadn't known to play on the channel at some point. That's never something that's going to happen because holy crap, there's so many games coming out. But there are, I can get pretty darn far along, I think. It's just, I just have to do it. I just have to relax and let the game playing flow through you, flow through me. Do some game zen, some game fu, if you will. So that takes care of Homeworld Deserts of Karak, so you'll be seeing that, and then, like I said, be looking for something to do on the Thursday after that, and for that, and Tuesdays and Thursdays that way, beyond that, I should say. Whew, the English, it's sometimes there, sometimes it isn't. I guess because it's past midnight already. so much for starting these recordings earlier, but like I said, I was just finishing up Homeworld earlier. So the little bit of news that I do have, Fallout 4 is Bethesda has announced that Fallout 4 is getting a survival difficulty mode. Now, what does that mean? It means survival difficulty will disable manual and quick saving. So basically, it's one life to live, and that's it. To save, well, I shouldn't say that. It's it disables the manual saving and disables quick saving. In order to save the game, you need to find a bed and sleep for at least an hour. So it makes saving harder. Let's put it that way. Combat is more lethal for everyone, so you deal more damage, but you also take more damage. Fast travel is disabled, so you have to physically travel everywhere. Which, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're going to do that, you really need to provide a means of transportation around the game. Like, hey, I can go find, I mean, there's building mechanics in the game, so maybe I should be able to build a car or something and be able to drive around in that. Because the world is pretty darn big, and it can be a bit daunting to, especially when you have to backtrack all the time, to constantly be running here and fro. I understand why they do it, because they have all those random spawns and random encounters along the way, but still, it's, that's more of a quality of life issue than it is a difficulty issue. You know what I mean? The teleporting and stuff, or the fast travel, I should say. Ammo also now carries a small amount of weight, which varies by caliber. And heavier items such as fusion cores and mini nukes can really drag you down now. So there's for all of you who are fans of that, that is an additional thing in the survival difficulty. Survival difficulty automatically grants the adrenaline perk, which provides a bonus to your damage output. But the only way to increase your rank of the adrenaline perk is to get kills. So you have to get stuck in. Also, sleeping for more than an hour causes your adrenaline rank to lower. So you have to get kills to get adrenaline, to get more adrenaline. And sleeping reduces your adrenaline. So, makes sense, actually, pretty much. It's also adding, survival difficulty also adds the wellness feature. So you have to stay hydrated, fed, and rested to remain combat ready. If you let yourself go, it will hurt your special stats, and it will add to your fatigue. It can also lower your immunity, and eventually it'll start to deal physical damage to you. Fatigue is like radiation sickness, but instead of affecting your hit points, it affects your action points. So it shows up as red on your action point bar. Man, they're just piling it all on top here. This is definitely survival mode from what I can see here. You can also get sickness from the uncooked meat or unpurified water or disease-ridden people and all that stuff. And then you can create antibiotics at the chem station, or you can buy them from doctors to heal those effects. The type of bed you sleep in will determine the length of time you're able to stay asleep. So, like a sleeping bag will save your game, but will never allow for full night's rest and the associated benefits for that. Crippled limbs will no longer auto heal after combat. You have to heal with a stim pack. Exceeding your carrier weight reduces your endurance and agility stats and periodically damages your legs and health. So there you go. If you're over encumbered like I tend to be all the time, it'll start to, not only will it give the physical effects of your endurance and agility like any other like dice rolling game would, but it's also going to give you some damage to your legs and stuff. And locations you've cleared now repopulate with enemies and loot at a significantly slower rate. So farming a particular area will not be a thing that happens. Which actually, honestly, I hope they put that into the full game and into every difficulty, not just survival difficulty, because that's the one thing I don't like is when enemies respawn constantly. That's a big problem with the original Borderlands as I'm playing through it. It's like you have these areas where you have to get out of your ride and you have to walk on foot. And it's always, as soon as you get inside that area, there's always this random spawns that constantly, not random, but these constant spawns that happen with a random number of enemies that, after a certain time it respawns itself. It's just, and that's annoying as hell. It's like, you've already killed these things like 100 times. Why do you have to kill them again? Especially if you're way over leveling them. It's just, that I'm all for adding that to the game, and that reduction of that farming stuff, or having the cooldown on that spawn be a lot longer for any game, including this, for any difficulty. I don't just put that in survival difficulty, put that for every difficulty. That would be perfect. So beyond that, they haven't announced any update on the release of when that will go out, but it will be a free update and out in beta. So there you go. That is Fallout 4 news. Additional Fallout 4 news. A little factoid here from Destructoid. The Division, Tom Clancy's The Division, has broke a new record for a new IP in terms of how many beta players they had. I'll see if I can word this properly, but basically, the Division's beta launch had at its peak about 6.4 million people that took part in it, and that's a record for a new IP. Destiny was the old record holder with 4.6 million players. And the Division went well and truly beyond that. But of course, Destiny was only on a console, whereas Division was both on a console and on PC, so that could have quite possibly helped a bit. The other statistics they released here is that the average player committed 5 hours to it, and people spent an average of 2 hours in the PvP Dark Zone, with 50% of PvP players killing a teammate. We had a lot of PKers in there, a lot. But of course, everybody was trying out the game as much as they could, so they wanted to make sure that everything was still was not bug-ridden and was working the way they had expected it to. So some interesting little tidbits there about the Tom Clancy's Division. That's part of a list of releases that are all coming out, coming up in March. I mean, March and beginning of April have a lot of stuff. A whole hell of a lot of games coming out. And I'm going to get into that in just a few moments. Before I do that, I have one more piece of news here, new news anyway. That the old Mortal Kombat arcade machines, Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 in particular, 20 years later, people are still trying to hack into these machines and try to figure out how they work and see what's going on, if there's anything new that they haven't found before, for preservation's sake. And some new information came down. Someone found that there are some secret menus in the arcade versions of Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. They are called the EJB menus, not to be confused with Enterprise Java Beans, but rather the Ed J. Boon menus. Ed Boon was a developer, I believe, on the games. On 1, 2, and 3 anyway, Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. And the menu was really there. It looks like it was there as a means to test and debug the software of the game, before it's been married to the hardware. So, there's various things in the menus, like configuring the how many coins per play and whether or not there's free play and all that stuff, and testing the screen, and you can also test out the see a playthrough of all of the final cutscenes for every character, final story cutscene, whatever it is, and also every character, every single death finishing move in the games. You can see in one complete loop as it's going through there, and several other things. There's also, I think, in the arcade Mortal Kombat 3 arcade machine, you can also play a version of Space Invaders on it from that menu. And it looks like it's was really just a technical thing to do, for the devs and the QA testers be able to test those parts of the system without being in a cabinet and having the hardware load up already. Because as far as managing machines go, machines have another management interface. They basically have a bunch of dip switches that you can switch back and forth to turn certain things on and off and set what the price of each play should be, and so on and so forth. So these are more of the, let's be able to test those things prior to it, when you don't have the hardware yet, when you don't have it running on that full hardware. So very intriguing stuff. There's a video embedded in the Destructoid article that I'm linking you to, I believe. Yep, there is. I believe there is. Maybe not. There should be a video here somewhere. I'll find it. But I recommend watching it. I would recommend also skipping the first maybe 2.5 to 3 minutes of it, because the guy explaining it is a bit nervous and keeps repeating himself over and over and over again. Wait until you see it actually happen on screen. It's pretty amazing. You have to actually punch in a certain combination of keys in order to, I think it's like the 1-player block and 2-player block, and you have to do it in a certain pattern, and the pattern differs from one machine to the next, from Mortal Kombat 1 to 2 to 3, I should say, to get into these menus. And it's a little bit tricky. You see, he struggles a little bit to do it, but he manages to do it, and it's an interesting little watch. It's one of those little intriguing things that just happens from time to time when someone goes back and looks at an old classic game and they find something brand new about it. I guess that's why I really enjoy the speed runs a lot, because the speedrunners are out there constantly trying to peel back the covers of the games and find out how they tick and see how they can exploit it to get the best times that they possibly can, and all those various variations of the theme there. All right, so there is a game that I just heard about that I will link you to Destructoid on again. Destructoid is kicking butt this week as far as information goes. This game is called Salt and Sanctuary. Apparently, it was announced back in 2014 during PAX Prime, and it's been part of the PlayStation experience as well. It's a 2D side-scroller that is very Dark Souls-esque, both in terms of its artwork, and also in terms of the fact that you're going up against these freaking really, boss monsters and that are maybe not playing quite so fair all the time. It's also got some co-op on it, so you can jump in with a friend and try to take on some of the challenges. It's got a very interesting, like I said, art style to it. It's very intriguing. There is a PvP element to it. Like you can crush the Egg of Wrath and then turn on your co-op partner and turn it into a PvP arena match kind of thing. And they show that in the video as well. So I'm just kind of rehashing or retreading the things that are shown in that video. It's a pretty intriguing thing. Obviously, it's an indie game. It was coming out on the PS4, but I believe they also are coming out on the Vita and on the PC. So us PC guys and gals should be able to hopefully partake in this. I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued by it. I don't know when it's supposed to be released. I don't know. I don't know when their release date is supposed to be, but it might be something you want to put on your radar. It's like I said, once you look at the video and you look at the art style of it, you might be hooked on it, or you might look at it and go, "I don't like that art style," and you don't want to have anything to do with it. so there, it's one or the other, really. It's kind of a toss-up. there's a long range of possibilities in that gray area there that could happen. Let's see. Now, there was news about, you know, I've seen maybe 2 articles on this now, and I'm not entirely sure of the validity of this, so I'm not really going to go into details, and I'm not going to leave a link to it because again, I'm not really sure. But Eurogamer reported a little bit earlier this week that Ubisoft might be under a hostile takeover bid from Vivendi as far as their stock purchases are going. Like, Vivendi is purchasing a whole boatload of stock from Ubisoft, and possibly to try to get on their board of directors and be a major player as far as possibly taking over the reins there. But only at the time I'm looking at this, only Eurogamer has reported on this and nobody else. And I feel like if this were legit, we'd hear a little bit more right now. So I'm very skeptical as to the validity of this at the moment. So take what you will from it. Like I said, I'm not going to link to anything because again, it could be just a whole bunch of rumors that are unsubstantiated, and you know, we're early in the year and everybody's looking for their ad revenue. So the ad revenue sucks early in the year, so maybe it's a clickbait thing. I don't know. I am waiting to see if it gets confirmed officially and or unofficially by a lot of other people before I really dig into that. But that would be certainly an interesting combination, Vivendi and who did I say? Ubisoft. That would be interesting to say the least. Interesting in a bad way, probably for us as game players. So what else? So as I was mentioning a little bit earlier, there are a lot of games coming out right now, and I've listed on here quite a few that I'm looking forward to. Well, that I'm looking at, or that I've heard about and not looking at, and I just kind of want to I feel like I got to qualify everything I say here, and I just want to go over them real fast and talk about them a little bit. So in March we can expect Hitman to come out. I played a little bit of the beta. It was good. I mean, I'm into the genre, but I haven't really played more than a few minutes of Hitman. So everything made sense based on what I know of Hitman. But there were I was doing you start out sort of training, and you are, at least in the beta, you start out in training, and you're trying to infiltrate a boat and kill the head honcho in the boat without alerting anybody. And the first time through it's pretty straightforward. You know, you're just changing your get-ups and making sure you take people down and dump the bodies somewhere so nobody sees them. And then it kind of, you know, I did it once and I got through it, and then it sent me back there again for more advanced training, and then I was sort of having trouble because it put you in a different spot and the guards were right there, they could see you, and it's a Hitman game as far as I can tell. I haven't really, there's not a whole lot I can say about it because I'm so new to the series that I don't know if I don't have a point of comparison where I can say this is better than this one or better than that one. All I can say is that it's got all the trappings, as far as I can tell, of a Hitman game, and it's compelling in what it does. I don't know how. I mean, to me, I started getting really frustrated with it. But I am again one of those who's not normally doing that kind of thing with the Hitman games. So I just wanted to put that one out there. Let's see. So we got Tom Clancy's The Division as another one coming out in March. In fact, The Division and Hitman, I think, are coming out within a few days of each other. I think the Division's coming out on the 8th, I believe, and Hitman's on the 11th, or vice versa. So it's going to be an interesting analytical challenge to see who ekes out who as far as the AAAs go. They're going head to head basically this month. And the Division, I played in a live stream. It was good for what it was. There was a lot locked down for the beta. Obviously, they were just trying to test their servers, load balance their servers. I just wish they had said that up front rather than making you kind of infer that. But I don't know. As far as open worlds go, it's definitely open world. It's definitely got all the trappings that a sort of zombie survival open world game would have. But I can't really say that there's anything about it that was particularly compelling. I mean, I would like to know why, people are infected with the virus. I'd like to know some of that political stuff that's going on and how that's affecting people in the game world. But at the same time, I would like some actual interesting gameplay. And there wasn't really any, as far as I could tell from the beta, unless you were going into the PvP realm and realming it up, in which case, more power to you. I debated doing it, and I thought, now let me just get a video done, and then, I'll do that off camera. I'll do the Dark Zone stuff off camera or something whenever I get the chance. But yeah, we got those coming out. We've got Far Cry Primal coming out, I believe, March 1st, maybe, possibly. Or at least somewhere close to, they said March in there. Far Cry is Far Cry. Far Cry games are just basically engine demos as far as I can tell. So I don't get very in tune with what they're doing. So, all the power to them, but I don't know much about Far Cry Primal. It's apparently, instead of going into the future, like you did with sort of some of the other Far Cries, or being in the present, instead you're kind of thrown into the past or something, and you have to defend yourself, and that's about all I got from the story of that. So I don't know what else to expect with that game, and I'm not really, it's not really in my wheelhouse, honestly, to do. Now there's an indie first-person shooter, sci-fi shooter coming out called E.T. Armies. The premise behind this is that I believe Earth is evacuated mostly, but there's a bunch of people that are left behind because they couldn't afford to get transportation off the planet. The planet is being overrun by an alien race, and you have to go kill them. Pretty straightforward and simple. It looks pretty graphically good, from what I can tell on the videos anyway. I don't have any access to it otherwise. It reminds me a bit of Halo, and I don't know if that's intentional or not. I'm kind of hoping, we've all wanted a PC version of the recent Halo games. I think everybody could say they've wanted that at some point. Even if you're not really a fan of Halo, you still want to be able to see it on there and maybe try it out someday. But it's this one kind of reminds me a little bit of that. The guns with the countdown timers on them for your bullets, and some of the other things there. I don't know how many levels are going to be in the game. They said something like 3 levels in the game, but I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're just ginormous areas and they're split up into parts, or if it's something else, like maybe they're focusing on multiplayer or something, or I don't know, or they reuse assets a lot. I have no idea what was meant by that. So I'm just I'm interested enough to maybe take a look at it. I think a game like that probably is going to survive on its multiplayer. but an indie game studio doing multiplayer is kind of a little bit rough, because if you don't sell well, your multiplayer is not going to be very good. And trying to sell well is a bit of a tricky thing, especially when, like, the ET Armies thing, I just literally stumbled onto it. Like, I had no idea that was even a thing or what was going on. Like, the marketing for that is probably not very good, because it's an indie game, but it's on Steam, and yeah, I don't know. I'm a big ball of don't know on that, but it's something I'm keeping in my mind here. And then Into the Stars, a game that I did a side quest video on. That's going to be released in March. I am very interested to see what they've done with the game since I last looked at it. I haven't looked at it at all since that last video that I did, but I've been reading, the updates that they've been giving, and hopefully, they've done a lot of changes, a lot of fixes to it. So I would like to jump back into that at some point, and maybe on a live stream again, and see what that has in store. Hopefully they've. I'm very optimistic that they've done a bit on that. I think there was some things that frustrated me for the early build that I played, but I have a feeling that most of what I was complaining about were relatively straightforward fixes that could help things quite a bit. There's a free expansion to Path of Exile coming out called Ascendancy. That's supposed to be dropping in March. I believe Path of Exile is free to play? ? I'm not sure. I don't know if that's the case yet or not, or if that's always been the case. I always get Path of Exile confused with other things, so I always have to look it up to see what's what with it. And I believe, I don't know what the business model is. I don't know if it's free to play. I don't know what's going on there, but it certainly looks like an interesting expansion that they've made. So I would encourage you to go look at the Steam page and other Google Foo to find some videos on it and see how it plays out. Then Epistory, another game that I took a look at. Epistory Typing Chronicles. That's supposed to be coming out this month. So I will be definitely doing a Let's Play of that game. So I'm trying to not overbook myself with things, because I want that to be on the channel. And then we're going to start seeing the first wave of some of the Oculus Rift things, like Adrift. It's supposed to be coming out this month. There's a couple others that I think are coming out in the bundle this month. And I believe the first, those people who got lucky and got in and pre-ordered their Oculus Rift prior to the date on the pre-orders changing, I think they should be getting their stuff in March as well, ? I think. I know I'm still on the waiting list until June, I believe. Maybe a little bit earlier than that. I don't remember entirely. So I would like to partake in the Adrift experience. I don't know if they are releasing it on the PC. I don't know if it's going to be the same experience with a mouse and keyboard as it would be with a virtual machine on your head. I'm more concerned that when it comes to that game, that I'm going to put that VR headset on my face and get motion sickness that I've never gotten before, because I feel like it's just going to be too flowing and too much going on the screen at once. But too much going on the screen. Yeah, too much floating going on the screen. I'm trying to qualify what I'm saying, and I'm coming up with words that don't make any sense. But in Adrift, you're an astronaut. You're caught on a station that was just hit by some micrometeoroids or something, and it's all breaking apart, and you need to salvage what you can, and you're flying through there, and with the rift on your face, you're basically experiencing all that sort of weightlessness and floating around, but you're still sitting in your chair firmly on the ground. So I feel like it's going to throw your brain off entirely. And I don't know. That might be one of those games where it starts out. I start out playing it on the Rift, and then I'm like, nope, this is going to be a mouse and keyboard game right now. Don't need a barf bag to be next to me while I'm doing things. Another one waiting for. So I did many moons ago a video on Onion Force that is supposed to be coming out this month. Onion Force or March, I should say. Onion Force is a cartoon style tower defense / RPG game. Well, tower defense game with some RPG elements in it. So like your character's level, and you buy stars and stuff like that, and you're putting turrets down. But it's also got this weird mechanic where your characters are constantly moving, so you always have to, when you're placing a turret down, they move again, and then they don't stop until they hit a wall. So you kind of have to keep balancing them back and forth, and they can go in and kill some of the minions coming down the pike that you need to stop with your turrets. So it's a little bit of a cross between all that stuff. The artwork was quite nice. It was a very beautiful game. I like to revisit it and see what they've changed since I last looked at it, because hopefully they've changed some of the menus around, because they were the only thing that was really kind of kludgy to me, a little clunky maybe. So that should be coming out this month. Moon Hunters, which is one I've been waiting for because I backed them on Kickstarter and was not allowed. They're on an embargo, so I couldn't do any videos of it. So I'm waiting for all that to lift so I can finally do a video of it, because I haven't played any of it. I want to play some of it. I believe I have access to it. I want to play some of it, but at the same time, I've got so many things I'm playing to try to keep up with that it's been kind of falling back a little bit, and I not being able to do a video on it too kind of puts it lower on the list as well, because I'm like, well, I might as well wait, since I gotta wait anyway. So we'll see with that. We'll see with that and how that works. Moon Hunters is it's a 2D top-down RPG that's being developed. It's got pixel art style in it. From what I believe it does. I might be confusing that with something else, but I'm fairly certain it did. And it's I don't know much else about it, honestly. It just, I don't know a whole lot about it. I really need to sit down and play it, even though I can't do any recordings on it. I kind of want to sit down and just try to wrap my head around what it is. Last thing I need to do is to bring another long-form RPG onto the channel. I have far too many of those going on to keep up with. I eventually want to get back to The Witcher 3 and everything else. So it's I'm trying to fighting the urge to do more series than I can possibly even do and keep up with. Right now it's even hard. It's hard enough as it is just getting side quest videos up, because I don't have enough time sometimes to just do some of the research that I want to do before I do the video. So those things, all those things, I have more on here. Believe it or not, there's a lot of stuff on here. Like I think Awesome Knots is their Overdrive expansion is coming up in March. Possibly Stars Beyond Reach, which is from Arkham Games, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to get pushed back, because it still says March on Steam, but I don't know if that will get pushed back because of the unfortunate financial issues that Arkham Games is having. So I don't know. I put big question marks there with that. And something called Starship Corporation, which actually doesn't come out until April, but it looks like it looks ridiculously hard to get a hang of. I think it's you're building starships, as you might imagine, and it's you actually build them from scratch. You can simulate certain failures and how they work together. You got to wire up all this stuff, and you have crews that man it, and it's just from the overload of stuff in their videos. I would say that it's probably got a very high learning curve to it. But that said, being sci-fi, I'm like instantly on it. Like, yes, I need to see what this is. But I have to wait until April, I think, for that one. So yeah, a bunch of stuff going on. It's going to be. It looks like it's shaping up to be quite the month as far as releases go, with all these different games I'm looking at. So I think I'm going to stop while I'm ahead here, because I am fading quite fast right now. Fading faster than I thought I would be at this point. And like I said, there's not a whole lot going on as far as news this week. So I've been trying to just give you some ideas for things to look at that are going on. Unfortunately, I didn't get to Grim Dawn, which is 6 years in the making, and it's coming out this week. That's it's out there. I don't want. I'm not even going to link to it. Just go look for it. I was going to link to the Destructoid article, but I wanted to do more thoughts on it before I did that. But I'm just kind of throwing it out there now, just so it's out there. And maybe I'll follow up on it next week. It'll stay on the list, and hopefully that'll be the case. But yeah, like I said, fading fast here, rambling on, not even on topic, don't even know what I'm saying. Trying to keep my eyes open, those kinds of things, trying to stay energetic. So that will do it for this episode of Cube Ramblings. Hopefully it was not too ramblings this time around, but I apologize if it was. And you wanted more news, but there was really nothing. There was a whole lot of nothing going on. But there you go. There you have it. Thanks so much for watching on YouTube or listening on SoundCloud. And I will see you guys next Sunday.